like the setup. So that's a casual talk show style.
Exactly. That's all this is. Yes. I don't really regard this as it's not an interview as such. We just have a conversation about what it is you're doing. So hello, David.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me on the BTS Creative Academy.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We're here today at the Romford Film Festival, which your film has been showcased at. Tell me a little bit about your film. What's the film's title?
Straight Through Crew.
Straight Through Crew, yes.
Yeah.
So I've seen the trailer for it. I haven't actually seen the film myself. It's very intriguing. The premise of it happens at Christmas time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not a children's film.
It's not a children's film, and as Letterboxd keeps reminding me, it's not a Christmas film either. But it's, it has the Christmas spirit, I think, in there somewhere.
So what's this film about?
It's set in my local village, and it's essentially about my 20s, about the parties that my friends used to throw. Being part of a village, it's your quintessential old English rural village.
Everyone knows everyone.
Everyone knows everyone.
Yes.
There's a lot of older people there, and it's picturesque. But there's a lot of young people there, and where the surrounding area isn't exactly very developed, and there's not a lot going on. It's a very hedonistic place. So the film takes place at a rave that they're throwing on Christmas Eve.
Right. And so have you taken this all from your own experience?
Almost, yeah. To be fair, when I watch the film, I think it feels like a film, like a film version of a lot of different parties, a lot of different raves. There's a nice community aspect where you have, like I say, a DJ. In our case, it's a guy called Tom Plank, who's a DJ, he makes his own music. He puts on these nights for his friends, and he put on a series of parties that took place over sort of 6 years at its peak, and there were just massive parties happening.
And these were parties that you...
Yeah, I was attending.
You was attending these parties, and at what point was you attending them and you was like, right, I need to make a film about this? I need others to know what's going on here.
It's weird because, that was my 20s, and I was making films. I remained in that area, still making films. So I'm a bit of a strange guy anyway, and I'm not selling myself as a raver or a massive club guy anyway. I'm definitely not a big drug guy, but I was ending up attending these raves, and there's a lot of passion and there's a passion for music, there's a passion for community, there's a passion for the drugs and just getting off your heads. These guys took really seriously. So I was messing around with genre stuff. Throughout my 20s, I wanted to be like a provocative genre filmmaker. Okay. I hit 30, things happen in life, and I think lockdown was a big reflective moment, and I thought, if I'm going to make another film, let's do something really personal, something that I really know and really lived in, something that only I can make. And I've been living this for the last 10 years now. So
why did lockdown make you reflect on how you was looking at this filmmaking process?
It's a strange one. I think it just slowed down time for everyone, didn't it? I think so many people made healthier decisions in life, and looked back at things and reconnected with things that they used to enjoy. Lockdown was, it's kind of it was brutal for a lot of people.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not downplaying COVID itself. But it was a time where the world stopped a little bit and you got a little bit of time. Yeah. And it came at a time for me where I'd been making, I just scrapped a whole feature film basically. So my third feature that I spent 3 years making, I realised it wasn't my voice and I just scrapped it at the last minute. After finishing sound mixing the whole film, it looked pretty good, but it wasn't what I wanted to be making. So I think lockdown for me was a time of what do I really want to make? What's my voice as a filmmaker? What do I want to be putting out? I'm
really starting to notice this, talking to lots of different creative people in different fields, how there was a positive to be taken from that time at COVID, that forced pause, that forced moment of reflection. It was forced upon us. And in all of our lives, we don't really do that, do we? We don't really stop and evaluate stuff. But a lot of people, really good things have come from that.
I think so. I mean, in terms of depending on where you are in life, I work 45 to 50 hours a week. There's not a lot of time to be reflective or to get anything done. So the fact that I got furloughed for 4 months, that alone, I think the fact that we're so connected on the internet now as well, people were sharing ideas and sharing passions. We were having Zoom, group Zoom calls where we'd all watch a rubbish film together on Netflix and stuff. And it sort of brought people together and made, you found what's important in your life that makes you happy. So that's what we're all trying to do. It was a pretty miserable time at the same time. And I think people lent into passion and what makes them happy.
I watched a friend of mine yesterday. He's a solo performer, plays the guitar. He was at it was called like a Rock the Park type thing, an outside festival, and he was performing there. And one of his own songs that he performed, he wrote that during lockdown about how he wasn't valuing connection before that time.
Yeah.
And he just took it for granted.
Of course.
And that time really woke him up to the importance of connection.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all need a reminder. We do take that for granted because it comes so easy, especially depending on what age you are. Like, adulthood's a weird one because you go through school, very social, secondary school, social, university or whatever you do, social. Work, you get that's where your social, you're not choosing your social group, you're within a workplace and your social group's sort of made for you there and you adapt to it.
Yes,
And I think it is easy to take that for granted, and especially with lockdown, that all got taken away.
So do you think there's so this film started being made after lockdown, did it?
Yeah.
Did you start this process? And so did any of that reflection of like connection for you get reflected within the film?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the film doesn't have a grand narrative at all. I was dealing with specific themes that I think were relevant, and the main one was community.
Right.
And if the film has any sort of like narrative arc at all, it all comes back to the community of this group, of these friends in this village that are navigating their 20s and they're going different ways, but they all sort of come back together. And I think there's something kind of special about that.
It sounds a bit like a coming of age kind of tale, is that right?
I think so, yeah, because the film's straight through crew, it's set over 24 hours, so it's 24 hours in this village, morning to morning.
Yeah.
So, and a coming of age type film, traditionally you'd need time for people to come of age.
Yes,
So the
yeah.
characters of this, there are not massive changes within it, but the conversations that are going on during a night of, excessive drug and alcohol use, the conversations they're having and the dynamics within their relationship are meaningful to them. So I do think it is like a coming of age.
It kind of, what you're telling me about this film reminds me a bit of The Breakfast Club.
Yep.
It all set in one moment, a group of people coming together, and I'm guessing they might go off on, like, they've got different things going off on their lives, apart from what happens within this story in this moment.
For sure. Like something like The Breakfast Club, I think, at the end of the day, if you started filming again the day after their detention, things might not have changed radically in their lives and they might still be acting the same way, but there's always going to be times where they're able to refer back to that time in detention. That moment, exactly, and that moment they shared together. And I mean, the heartbreaking thing about that, probably, The Breakfast Club, is I don't think things would have changed. They're still in their archetypes. You still got the jock and the goth, and I don't think things would really change in their school life.
Do you not think the way that they would interact with each other? I would
It
like
would always be there. It'd always be in the back of their minds. But I do think, I think the framework and the structure of their social groups are so in place that I don't think they would have radically changed at all.
I really love that in a film when you can watch a film and have questions afterwards. Where did these characters go afterwards? And it can be open to so many different interpretations rather than it's just a full stop on the characters.
100%. Like, I love ambiguity and I love just the idea of using your imagination in a film. And I do like a film to finish and wonder, did anything change with those characters? Has this radically changed their lives? What are they doing after? How do they feel like after the adrenaline of the final act? Where do these characters go after that? There's something fascinating about that. And with Straight Through Crew, definitely, what happens that morning of Christmas Day that we don't get to, like, the story continues. And the more interesting story probably continues after that film. Again, this is just a moment.
And so the people so with independent film, was this a case of you used a lot of people you know to get this film made? The people in the film, did you know them already, or were they new people brought together?
Yeah, kind of. Like, in terms of some of the actors, one of the leading roles is my friend Jason, who is just the character that he's playing. No acting experience whatsoever, but I just felt he had enough natural charisma in life.
You knew that was gonna. You knew that was.
I think he can do it, and he proved us right. Like, he could do it.
So what? He wasn't an actor before that, then?
No, and he's not an actor now. He works in finance.
Right. Okay. Nice. That's really nice.
But I mean, he's a big part of that party scene, and he helped a lot with the script anyway, of trying to get things accurate in terms of the drug use and stuff. So he was always, and he was a big part of like just the production, because we were just in my local village. We had about eight to 10 crew members, most of them alien to our village. They all came up from London. So yeah, he was just a good person to keep things together. But in terms of the crew, like it was our DOP, say Tom O'Keefe, he was just a university friend who shoots music videos for a living now and wanted that entry into features. So he was up for doing it. So it was a lot of favours because there wasn't a massive amount of money.
And that tends to be the way with independent films, isn't it? There's no front end money. There's no money at the front, really, is there?
Or the back.
It very rarely happens at the back end as well. Yeah. There may be some hopes and dreams.
I mean, that's all we're riding on. Really.
Yeah, but how long is this movie? Is it a full-length movie?
Yeah, it's 80 minutes.
Right, okay.
It's a short feature, but I think if with the budget we had, if you're making over 80 minutes, I don't know where that money's coming from.
It's going to start to double, triple, and
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this was a 13-day shoot that I knew we could handle. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of commitment for people. Because most people on independent films won't be getting paid, will they? You did manage to find a way to pay them.
Yeah.
You was.
Yeah,
oh wow.
I was
okay.
quite. What's on camera, what's on screen didn't require a lot of money. So with my area, I knew locations would be quite cheap. The rave itself we were throwing, so it was just the rental of that venue and some money towards production design. But I was quite proud that everyone paid like a daily wage.
Yeah, that is very difficult to do. So did you get funding from somewhere?
Yeah, a bank loan.
Right. Okay.
And some lockdown savings.
You won't be the first filmmaker that done that. Kevin Smith springs to mind when he made Clerks. He got a credit card to make Clerks, and look where that's taken him now.
Exactly.
If you believe in yourself, I always say to my kids, if you believe in what you're doing, that's the best kind of investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like indie filmmaking in general is a hustle. I don't want to be hustling around a script that has no money behind it. I know I don't have any money to put into it, and hope that somebody gives me the magic amount to make my perfect film. I'd rather put whatever I can into the project and shop that around. If I'm hustling, I want to be hustling with a film, something behind me. And that's always been, I made my first film straight out of university. It cost like £1,500. At least we had a film. And it was rubbish. I'm not pretending it's good. It was rubbish, but at least we had a film to shop rather than here's an idea to shop. Because, you're in a very privileged position if people are funding ideas.
What did you learn from that rubbish film?
Everything, like how to direct a film.
Yeah.
So it was literally like 5 people using a Canon XL2 camera because 28 days later used that. The coverage was all Dutch angles and blah 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 blah, and we didn't know how to direct actors. You don't actually learn that when you're doing maybe in film school, but if you're doing a degree in film, you don't know how to learn. You don't learn how to.
No, and I've seen that a lot from filmmakers, that the actors are kind of the last fault of how do we make that bit work, because and a lot of the time I've got an acting background, and a lot of the time I think people have just assumed as an actor I'll know how to do everything and how to just turn up on the day. Yeah. But most actors don't know how to turn up on the day, and they need direction from a director.
100%. And if you've got a director who's obsessed with a camera and he's hanging out with the DOP, and I've seen this numerous times, hanging out with the DOP, what's the shot going to look like? What lens are we using? Sometimes the actors just get left in the background.
Where did you start to learn how to deal with them then?
Literally through feature films. I've been ridiculous. I haven't made shorts in between either, just because I don't particularly love watching shorts, and I wanted something. If you make a rubbish feature, there's a good chance you can sell it as a rubbish feature and still make something off of that. So that first film, Patrolmen, we got a DVD release and stuff on it. I mean, the market was different back then. Yeah. But at least we were able to get something out. So 4 years after that, I made another feature, and that was very much more like actor focused. Still pretty rubbish. I was like 25.
So you are looking at this in a business angle as well. It's not just purely for the craft. You are looking to invest and make these films in order for them to go somewhere and make some money. Am I right?
For sure. Or not. Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to make some money. But I've never really made money on this, and I've still been doing it for 15 years. But I think I want the film to be seen, and
if it's going to be seen, it needs money. It needs
exactly, exactly. And you need to put enough into it. And if you can sell it enough as a feature, you get to come to a cinema like Romford's and play in a festival like Romford Film Festival and see it in a screen, which I guess when you grow up wanting to make films, that's the ideal dream. Like, let's see it on the big screen with people in the audience.
Yeah.
And you can actually make that happen. And that's there's something liberating about that. And it's heartbreaking, like the amount of work and money that goes into this. Like, I mean, I don't have a family, and I'm probably at the age where a lot of people do have families. And I think, well, all my family money goes into making films. But I have moments like this where I think, yeah, it's probably worth it. Like, this is cool.
I see it as like the artist's sacrifice. There is something that you have to give up or not have in order to pursue your passion, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think most artists are like pretty proud of that sacrifice.
Yeah, you seem pretty proud of it. You seem pretty proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on some days.
Yes, of course, there's going to be days where you're like, am I making the right decision? I've had it myself. I've had it quite a few times myself where I'm like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
But in order to make your dreams come true, there's some things in life that you might have to put to one side.
Yeah, for sure. And I think navigating a creative industry, especially from like a working class background where, you know, none of my parents, they could barely read or write. So I was never pushed into an artistic sort of world, and I don't have much sort of training, and I had no interest in that in school. So to take that from school, and for me, like, cinema was liberating because I was an idiot. Like, I was like your typical sort of chavvy teenager. I wasn't interested in any subjects and any of the arts, but cinema hit me where I could understand cinema.
Was there a moment that it hit you?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was definitely a friend who I used to make films with. My friend Ben, he came over from America with just loads of horror films. It always comes back to horror films. So many film fans made, like, horror was their sort of breakthrough. And for me, like, watching The Evil Dead, massive. Before that, I was watching studio films where you think, how many thousands of people worked on this, and how do you go about
But
making
Evil Dead
this?
was something different, wasn't it?
DIY. And and then I got into really grungy horror, like your Jim Van Bebbers, and DVD Revolution, there were making ofs behind it, and I could watch some of Jim Van Bebbers' quite short films, and then he'd do a making of, and, you know, the bones in this scene were us getting drunk the night before and eating a load of KFC and just scattering bones everywhere.
And that sounded like a great way to live.
I was like, this is what I want from my adult life.
Yeah.
Like, but this is also an opening, like, I can do this, like, we can do this, we can pick up a camera and have a go. And that's such a cliche now, but you have to find that moment. But I do think getting you into the arts, cinema, because it's such a hybrid of high and lowbrow entertainment, you don't have to be particularly highbrow to get into it. It's hard to get into theatre if you're an ignorant person or, like, just not interested in that sort of stuff. If you're not educated in literature, it's tough to just pick up The Great Gatsby and enjoy it. But cinema, there's an in where the film might sell itself as like lowbrow entertainment. This is going to be fun, or this is going to be a horror film. It's exploitative, but it can open your eyes to so many different things and visuals. And
there's so many different parts of the industry that you can come in at.
Yeah,
you don't have to be the writer, director, cameraman.
Sure.
There's you can help with the props and the costume. There's so many things.
There's a mass amount, I think, of opportunities in film, and at the end of the day, it's a massive collaboration between those sort of minds that want to get this stuff on screen.
Yeah. So where are you at with the hustle of this film at the moment? Where in the process? Is it just literally coming to the Romford Film Festival and that's it?
So yeah, there's a certain amount of naivety, I think, when you put an indie film out there. Like, what do we want to do with it ultimately? So we're looking at selling. We're in contact, and my producer's doing most of this, but just contacting distributors, people watching it and reviewing it. We're playing festivals. So we played Northampton and Manchester before this one. So just gauging audience. You spend so long with a project, and you become, you're happy with it, but you're disappointed with certain aspects. But at the end of the day, you don't know how like a whole audience is going to take it in. So for me, festival screenings are very much a great gauge, and Letterboxd helps with that as well. Just gauging like what people think of it, how it's like touching them. Letterboxd. Do you use that?
No.
So Letterboxd is an app. It's like a social media app, but
Right.
just for films. So you log
Okay.
every film. So I just log every film like a diary.
Right,
Essentially,
okay.
I give it a 5-star review, like whatever.
And then
0
you
to
can
5
see what
star.
other people are.
Yeah.
I've
You
not
follow-
heard,
you
I've not
follow
heard of this
people.
before. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like I should have done.
Oh yeah. It's starting
Yeah.
to pick up now.
Right,
And
okay.
certain filmmakers like Sean Baker, who just won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, he's quite an active user on Letterboxd.
Right.
So you can follow these people and see what they're watching. And I love it just for watching like the generation below me.
And you can, is it a way to kind of gauge an honest review? Because,
Absolutely.
Because reviews are often, I find particularly these days, are bought.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
You can buy reviews.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, oh, this film is what, you know, this is the greatest film I've ever watched. And then you sit down and watch it and you're like, who said that?
Yeah.
Because this is awful.
Yeah.
It's got 5 stars in all these different places, and you don't actually know the places that are giving it 5 stars.
Yeah.
Whereas with Letterboxd, it sounds like you're hearing
It's
from
personal.
real people.
They're not critics. And with an indie film, like who's writing about your film anyway? There are very few outlets that are willing to properly review indie films.
Yes,
and you
yeah.
do get those reviews. Someone gave me gave Straight Through Crew like a 3 out of 5 and said that it was way more than Trainspotting.
Okay.
And I thought, for one, that's a ridiculous comparison. Trainspotting's outrageous.
Yeah.
But also, how am I getting a 3 out of 5 with, but it's more than Trainspotting? It's bizarre. So, whereas Letterboxd, someone will just say, I thought this was a piece of shit. Brilliant. Took 1
Yeah.
star. I know exactly where I stand now with that,
Yes,
that
yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate the honesty on that.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm definitely going to download that app. So, what's next for you then? What does the future look like outside of this film? What's your hopes and dreams?
I'm like, as is with the last 15 years of my life, I'm constantly writing scripts. The only difference now is I think they're starting to get better, and I'm starting to find a voice, and it really does take time. So hopefully, I think this is the first like film that feels technically proficient and like professional that I've made. Like it feels like something that could be screened anywhere, and it's even if you don't like it, it can be considered like a decent looking film. So hopefully I can use this to get another project off the ground.
So this is like each film, is it a bit like a launch pad to the next one?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And not even in a cynical way of like this is a calling cards, because a calling card's really hard to achieve, like
Yes,
that calling cards. But it's always trying to lead on to the next. So I'm writing something about a gay traveller, gypsy lad who gets into bare knuckle boxing to try and satisfy his father.
Right.
And that's something I've been working on. Probably 10 years ago, I started writing a film about bare knuckle boxing within the traveller world. It's a culture that I know very well from like family. So I'm from like a traveller family. I'm not a traveller myself, but I get to go. I grew up visiting.
But you've
like,
seen- you've
caravan
seen it.
sites. Exactly,
Yeah.
and it's such an easy. I think it's such an easy culture to stereotype and to make pastiche versions of those characters. And I want to make something real about the culture, but also I love like fight cinema. My favourite film's Raging Bull. I want to do that sort of like the art of the bare knuckle boxing, because you know it's an interesting sport and it's actually growing now. Like bare knuckle boxing's semi-legal. You can watch it in like small
really?
arenas now. Yeah, like there's a British bare knuckle boxing promotion. So I think there could be an audience for it. I think it could touch.
Yeah.
people.
Well, I do know that I've just been working on a Disney project, 1,000 Blows.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a really popular book, but that's what it's about. It's about bare knuckle boxing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Stephen Graham
Yeah,
is going to
okay.
be in it. But it's a big thing that's going to be coming out at the end of this
Oh,
this
amazing.
year.
I
So
didn't know
maybe
about that.
I often find that things like this, the timing's kind of right for it. That sometimes there's like an idea out there in the world, and it's this is the moment for that idea, and it doesn't have to be one thing
Yeah.
on that idea, but maybe this is your moment as well to
Hopefully.
to come into that.
Hopefully,
that
that's
idea.
interesting you say that, because I do agree. Like, I think certain things are in the ether, certain
Yes.
ideas, and they just
Yeah.
come together. I think it's the whole sort of deep impact volcano scenario where they just appear at the same time. People are just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
and you do see that, don't you? You see it a lot in movies. Sometimes there's other reasons. I was going to reference a Bug's Life and Ants.
Yeah,
But
that's another one.
that's another one. But that was because there was a feud going on in the background and they sold the script.
Okay, yeah.
But from an outside point of view, you do see that in cinema, don't you? Yeah, Volcano and Deep Impact, and there was another one as well, wasn't there? At the same time, Armageddon.
Yeah, did that come
Armageddon,
out with something, something else?
Yeah.
And just, you know, you see like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Licorice Pizza, which are vastly different films, but they're filmmakers who are entering their late 50s, early 60s that are thinking back. And, you know, that felt like a quite personal film for Tarantino, and it's definitely a personal. Licorice Pizza was a personal film for PTA. We share these visions.
We do share these visions, I think, and it's good that we can pick up on it.
Absolutely.
And make something of it.
Absolutely.
And,
that's when cinema is like a cultural force,
yes.
which you need it to be. Cinema shouldn't stand alone, or it shouldn't be just stuck in one genre or, you know, one particular thing selling. It should be a cultural force where we're getting maybe linked ideas, linked themes, similar things going on that we can just sort of slam at the culture and say this is where life's at and this is where film's at.
Where do you feel, or where do you get your inspiration from for what you're going to make next, or what you've made in the past?
It's definitely real life, like people you meet. I think depends. I think it's different for different people, especially if you're working within genre. Although if you're working within genre, you still add personal elements. But it's that personal. I think as a filmmaker, the longer you do it, the more you realise your voice is the most important thing. Otherwise, you know, there's a standard way of making films where almost anyone could do it if they've had some training. It's what your voice is going to make that one stand out. So I think I'm just a curious person. I'm very observant. I listen to a lot of conversations. I've obviously got ideas and feelings towards certain things that I wanna get out. And specifically for like this gypsy one, it's definitely my background. So I know I can write something that will feel authentic.
Tell me about those feelings that you want to get out. What is it you want to? What is the purpose of this? What do you want to share?
I think it's just with the gypsy film. I think it's just an untouched culture. It's something we don't, you know. I think there's more racism towards gypsies, more prejudice towards gypsies, and we're handling prejudice like racism and any sort of discrimination. It's still out there, but at least we do address them, and the media will tell us it's wrong, even though it's still going on, and it's something to think about. Whereas travellers are they're the most untouched culture and unknown culture, subculture in this country. So I think that's fascinating. And making Straight Through Crew, I wanted to make a story about a working class area that wasn't necessarily poor. They're not living in poverty, but they're also not upper middle class. So what are these guys? There's something that we miss from British cinema particularly. It's almost all period stuff or upper middle class, or it's, you know, down like projects and like sort of like for people fighting against poverty. But what are the people in the middle doing? And I think there are so many pockets of this country where audiences don't see that depicted very often. In-Betweeners is a good example. They're sort of like lower middle class kids living in the burbs. And that spoke to so many normal people. They were able to relate to that. And I was definitely, you know...
I was one of those. I was
like, yeah, this is us.
How did they look in on my teenage years?
Exactly.
Like, how did they know that I was up to that?
Exactly.
It was a little bit concerning at points. I was like, hold on a second.
But you do realise this stuff's like universal.
Yes, and that's the importance of it, that we do go through similar things.
Absolutely.
You know, there was points in my teenage years where I felt very alone and isolated because I thought I'm the only one going through this. But actually, through watching film, through watching TV, that is where I started to get that message that actually, no, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That it connects everyone. That's where we came to at the beginning of this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That it brings everyone together, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know what, social media probably does that. And I guess there's a generation before me that really find their people online. But that doesn't mean that cinema and TV and music still can't do that either. It just does it on a level that's more produced. And
well, I think we've been storytelling since the beginning of time, haven't we? And you know, back to cavemen, they were definitely storytelling with the paintings on the wall.
Yeah.
And this is the way that we're storytelling now, to move messages forward.
Yeah, for sure.
And to bring people together through those messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get to some really interesting places, don't we?
Yeah, this was beautiful. Yeah.
With these conversations. Like, I'm having moments where I'm like, wow, yeah. Like, I didn't even consider this myself until just now. And yeah, it's amazing.
That's the power of cinema.
It is the power of cinema.
Which is the power of conversation as well.
Yeah, and talk it through. Like the thing that we see on the big screen. Yeah, talk through. What does that actually mean to you? What does that mean to society?
Absolutely. And from a personal point of view, like, there's watching films and then there's understanding films. And I think my understanding came after uni when I was working as a cleaner in a cinema and I was listening to podcasts with just it was the creative screenwriting podcast at that point. And just hearing screenwriters talk about process and ideas and where they're getting to. And this could be for films that, you know, aren't necessarily high art, but just like blockbusters. But it's interesting to hear creatives going through that. Yeah. And that makes you feel way less alone.
Yeah.
It's also inspiring. It makes you want to understand everything about the industry and everything about this medium because there's so many different voices.
Yeah, once you start looking into it or listening to it, how other people have done it, it does make it easier for you to go on and do it, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It's a different way of learning, isn't it? Like when we're at school or we go to university, it's very much we're taking from other people's experience, but in a very formatted way.
Yeah.
Whereas listening into these conversations or being part of the conversations, I do feel like it's definitely for me opened up my mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, I keep saying younger generation, like I'm an old man. I feel like the oldest man right now. But like this generation, they're listening to all of this. Like podcasts have opened up the medium. We had like radio just shoved down our throats, and that sort of got old. I don't know many people that still even listen to radio.
Yeah, well, I do. You know, music's very important still to consume music. But the conversations have definitely got their place in society.
Yeah, and they've got deeper.
And they've got these conversations getting deeper and deeper, and we're building on it, and we're discovering new stuff, aren't we? Yeah. Stuff that perhaps we knew, but we didn't know we knew.
Yeah, I like to think it's all in there anyway. It just sort of opens up those doors.
Yeah.
I do worry that once we hit a point of saturation with the deep conversations, where we go to then. So I think if you unravel your place in the world too much, I don't know what that leads to. Nihilism, probably.
Yeah, where does this go to next? That's a very good one.
I almost don't want to know too much.
No, but maybe that, you know, would the journey be worth it if we knew the answers?
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, that's a deeper universal
question. That's very
then,
universal.
Isn't it?
I'll just throw like ambiguity back onto that. Definitely. You don't want to know everything. You don't want to know too much. There needs to be some.
Let's just keep going and seeking the answers for as much as we can and enjoy the entertainment. And maybe there's more behind the entertainment that we can take something from and adapt to our own lives.
Exactly. It's about that journey. And actually, Romford last night showed Once Upon a Time in America, the 4.5-hour cut. And
then Robert De Niro,
Sergio Leone, period gangster film, Prohibition, New York era, and multiple eras because De Niro's character goes in and out of New York at that time. But ultimately, that film was made by like an Asian filmmaker. I think it was probably Leone's last film before he died, and it is looking at mortality. And there's that bit at the end where the character of Noodles that Robert De Niro plays, he's basically realises his friends ripped him off. James Woods has ripped him off, and they were very good friends. And James Woods is literally saying like, "You've got an in, like kill me. Here's a gun, kill me. I've done you wrong." And De Niro thinks back just to their old days when they were little hood children and Prohibition era New York. And it makes him not want to kill him. And you realise it was about that journey. Like, they're both rich men now. They've reached where they wanted to be. The beauty of their lives was in that journey when they had nothing. And there's something beautiful about that. And I like to think, I try not to take what I'm doing for granted now, because I think this is the most romanticised part of my life, where I'm hustling, trying to make films, doing everything without money and trying to find money to do things and going to festivals, meeting interesting filmmakers from all around the world. This is the journey.
Yeah, enjoy the journey rather than the destination.
You've got to enjoy it, because, I might end up in a condo in Hollywood in 15 years' time and be absolutely bored and discontent with it still. And I think, maybe it was the hustle of my 20s and 30s that, that was where it's really at.
I've my daughter's looking at being a musician, and she's got this, she wants to get somewhere with being a musician. But she said to me recently, that, why can't it just be tomorrow? Yeah. And I was like, because you won't enjoy it if it's tomorrow. Yeah. You might have 5 minutes of fun with it. Yeah. But then that'll quickly fade. Yeah. Whereas if you've got the journey to reflect back on, when you get there, you'll appreciate it so much more. Yeah. And that's really hard for a teenager to understand. You can't comprehend that time. But even myself as an actor, the struggles that I've been through, and I'm still not got to a certain level with my acting that I want to be. and at times I was like, do I give up? But no, every time I pushed on, it's made it more worthwhile, all the stuff that went on before that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't build a house on mud or sand, you know. You build a foundation, and I think what we're doing now is the foundation. That's the most important part. I always
Have
think
you listened to this podcast before?
No, I've never.
Because I talk about that. I talk about how this podcast is my foundation at the stage that I'm at with it now. This is me laying down the grit, laying down the sand, and I'm just about to lay down the first brick.
Yeah.
And that's how I build my house.
Yeah.
That's how I build my life.
Yeah.
By starting off with the foundations, with the dirt, the mud, the grit, the sand. And then we get to the bricks.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you pile up all them bricks on, without prepping the foundations.
I've had to knock the first wall down a few times.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just go back to that foundation.
And you go back to the yes. Yeah, if you get the foundation right, you can build from there. And if it goes wrong, you can start again.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that foundation, it's going to slip away from you.
Definitely. 100%. And I think when I hit my 30s, that was going back to that foundation. I needed that. I needed that sort of just a reset in time where I could work on that foundation again, because it's important.
Yeah. So where are you going? What is are we getting a condo? Are you getting a condo in Beverly Hills? Is that what it's like?
Shit. I mean, to be fair, I enjoy LA. I want to be on that. I love, like, these festivals that I'm playing. I'd love to be playing in, like, Cannes Film Festival. And you know what? Sean Baker, who just won, I'm going to keep going back to Sean Baker, who just won the Palme d'Or, and a lot of independent filmmakers think that was one for all of us. Because that guy, he's probably in his mid-50s now. He's been making very small, self-funded films, indie films, for quite a few years. He made his big break with Tangerine, which was shot on an iPhone, which he was pretty ashamed of doing at the time, but that was his break. And since then, he's made the Florida Project and Red Rocket, films that have got respect internationally, and a few Oscar nominations here or there, but hasn't broke. And I think it can this year, as soon as his film, I think it's called Honora, played. There was just a groundswell of, like, this is incredible. He's actually hit it this time, and now he's won the Palme d'Or. I think that's taken a lot of time, I always think if I'm watching, I love UFC, and fighters that are in their mid-30s are like, well, they're done, they're veterans, and they've got 2 fights left in them, and they've got to retire. And I think the idea of a storyteller, you kind of find yourself in probably your 50s.
It takes time. It takes time.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you haven't actually got stories to tell.
Exactly.
Have you? You need that life experience in order to be able to tell stories.
Yeah.
So from that position of writing a script or directing a film or a play or even writing songs, you need to have lived.
Yeah.
Or what do you pull on?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how the real geniuses did it with, like, your Orson Welles making Citizen Kane at 24. I'll just put that down to a very good education and incredible understanding and confidence in life. But
Orson Welles, I think it was confidence a lot with him. He decided he was not going to be told.
Yeah.
When he was told he couldn't make Citizen Kane the way that he wanted to make it, he just went, yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
Whether you might not like that might be not the way that everyone else has ever done it, but I'm going to show you how I do it.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of that we can embrace, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard. I always say, like, don't compare yourself to geniuses, because it always ends in sadness. My girlfriend writes, and she's reading a lot of Shirley Jackson right now, and she's almost quit writing because Shirley Jackson's voice is so much.
Yeah.
She feels like sort of smaller because of it, I guess. But you got to remember, but even before,
but even someone like that, they've all had journeys. It might have happened in a bit. Yeah, they might. For Shirley Jackson, I don't know her writing well enough to comment, but I'm sure there's been a journey before she started getting good.
Absolutely. Before
other people started reading her writing.
All the greats have made absolute rubbish. Kubrick, sort of, his first 3 films were sort of, he took off the market, like he hated them, but he had to, and he started young as well, but you still have to train yourself. Orson Welles was putting on great productions of Hamlet and Macbeth when he was like 18, like in theatre, but he had the grounding, and that does come from a great education. He was a privileged guy, and he had that streak of genius that was put in from a young age.
Yeah,
whereas like a working class filmmaker. Like,
not many of us are going to get that kind of privilege, are we?
and definitely not that confidence.
No.
Like, I still feel like nervous when I'm speaking to certain people and going to certain places.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have that inbuilt confidence. I don't have any academic studies behind me. So everything's come very organically from learning and that's since uni. It's just been learning at my own pace and learning what I want to learn.
But there's something really important in the organic learning, I think, as well. That's how I've done it through my entire life. I struggled at school, could hardly read when I came out of school. Yeah. But everything has happened to me afterwards has given me the learning and the skills that I need to go on to the next step.
Yeah.
And at times I might not realise that because I still got caught up in how things were at school sometimes.
Yeah.
But it is in that really corny saying, the school of life.
Yeah, the school of life. I bloody hate that saying. Yeah.
I think I put that at the top of my LinkedIn at one stage. And was like, no, delete that.
Yeah.
Delete. Like, it's true, but
I understand the sentiment.
Yeah. But actually, no one actually wants to hear that is my education. But it is really, really important to.
It is
to live
very
a life
important,
and go on a
and
journey.
you find those experiences. You're able to work on your creative work, and then it brings you into places like Romford Film Festival, where you meet other people doing this. It's again not feeling alone. It's inspiring. You learn from these people. You can take so much from other people's creativity. So that's again where the community aspect comes in of a film festival. It's so important.
So if you could, hypothetical for you now, if you could jump in a time machine and go back to that first bad film that you made, what advice would you give to yourself?
You know what? I'd probably say keep doing what you're doing. Like, keep making it. Make this shitty film that you think's really important. Because, I look at that and there's so many more ideas and bigger themes in that film than I do now. I've pared everything down, but I would never want to restrict that at the beginning. Like, I love that we were stupid enough to say, we could just make a feature film. Like, we'll be fine with it without any experience and any clue. We weren't exactly top of our class at uni either. We weren't the ones that were people thinking these guys are going to be directors. No. Like, I was hiding away, becoming like a location manager and sound man on most of the projects. So it was only after uni that I was like, right, fuck it, I'm gonna start directing here. I wouldn't want to change a thing, to be honest. Make every mistake again. Apart from that third film that I did fuck up, because that was 3 years of my life that I'll never see again.
But you've learned something within that.
I definitely learned the biggest lesson from that one. Yeah,
that's important, surely?
Yeah,
And what is that biggest lesson?
That follow your voice. I was trying to be someone else back then. I think that was the tail end of my 20s, and I did think I was like Michael Haneke, Gaspar Noé, intellectual, provocative, cruel horror that I can get away with because this is coming from a bigger place, and I was holding wide shots.
It takes such a long time to listen to that inner voice.
Yeah,
it takes a long time because the whole society thing tells us to do something different. Yeah. And there's a lot of people looking in that have probably got advice for you on the way that may have your best intentions at heart, but they may not know who you are.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to break through with our own voice unless we have those massive mistakes.
For sure.
And I think they wake us up, those massive mistakes.
Yeah, they do. They do, and they allow you to keep going. And to strengthen that voice, you really just need experience, time, and it comes with age as well. Like, I feel more confident in myself now than I definitely did when I was 24 and still trying to be doing this. So I'll take that.
Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation.
It's been beautiful. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you joining me. Appreciate if anyone was watching or listening for joining us as we explored this journey. Just a note to leave this on: if someone does want to look into this film that you've made, where do they find it?
Sure, Black Math Pictures on Instagram, at Black Math Pictures, or at DP Campion, which is my own personal one because I'm always posting about this as well. We've got a trailer on YouTube, Straight Through Crew trailer on YouTube. Look us up on Letterboxd. We haven't actually got an official website yet, but we'll just use those for now.
Yeah, they're fine. People can find it, can't they? It is out there in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
But the film itself, if we want to see the film itself...
So we haven't got distribution yet because it's a Christmas
film.
So
if there's a distributor out there...
If there's a distributor just happens to be watching this interview, please just buy the film and put it out for us. A cinema release would be lovely. But we'll be looking to distribute probably around Christmas.
Nice.
Just because it's a Christmas film. Let's
It ties
take
in.
It back.
Yeah.
It ties in. I feel dirty playing it at a festival with me, to be fair. But
No, there is I can't think of one that comes to mind now, but you know, just there is a feeling at Christmas, isn't there? And when you watch a film, even if it's not a family film, that's got that Christmas tie, it just feels there's an extra feeling there, isn't there? That feels different when you watch it in that moment.
For sure, and that could be, you know, Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Black Christmas,
there you
or
go.
anything grim out there. But yeah, again, it's a community thing. It's unifying. It unifies you with that place you're at that moment in time.
Here's where I was going to. Die Hard.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
No, everyone gets warm from Die Hard.
Yeah,
though,
brilliant.
You know,
But even though there's not the Christmas family motto there, there is something else that feels magical about
there's
it.
a man shooting a load of Russian terrorists, but there's something beautiful and nostalgic, and kind of warm about it.
Well, on that note, thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to watching the film. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.